Estabilización y Oportunidades Comunitarias. Ahora comenzaremos nuestra junta, así que por favor tomen sus asientos. Estamos emocionados de tener esta junta en persona y también reconocemos que hay miembros de la comunidad que se nos unen virtualmente. Esta junta es híbrida, por lo que comenzaremos repasando algunos elementos técnicos y logísticos con respecto a la interpretación. Si necesita interpretación en español aquí en la sala, consulte a los asistentes al final de la sala para recibir equipo de interpretación para escuchar la traducción simultáneamente. Y si se une a nosotros en línea y necesita interpretación del español al inglés, por favor de hacer clic en la función de interpretación del globo y seleccione español. Y solo queríamos recordarles que si desea mirar la presentación en español, puede hacerlo visitando nuestro sitio web y ahí está el enlace.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So please, just to recap, this is our agenda for today. My name is Christian Olano. I'm one of the facilitators here with you all today with Winter Consulting. So happy to be here and thanks for joining us during your evenings. We'll first start off because we have a new commissioner and we have someone who was not here at the first one. So we'll do some new commissioner welcomes and introductions. Then today is all about training. So we're going to do a staff presentation about the bylaws, Brown Act, some other policies that we want to inform you about and have a discussion and question and answer session with you all. And then we'll end with public comment and then adjourn. But before we proceed, I did want to pass it off to Nancy for other welcoming remarks as well.
Yes, just wanted to say thank you very much. It was delightful to get to gather, have a sandwich, break a little bread, get to know each other better. And we're doing the work right now of building our foundation. We're looking tonight at bylaws, group agreements, and the Brown Act. And this will give us key reference points that will help us as we go along and do the work that we're doing. Just want to say that some of these things can be very complicated, Brown Act, etc. So please don't hesitate to either ask more questions tonight or give one of us a call later on as questions come to you. Very much looking forward to continuing the work and then jumping further into the more creative portion, perhaps, on bringing on fund manager, etc. But with that, I'll turn it back to Christian, and thank you again.
Thank you, Nancy. So before we proceed, I think we wanted to offer the opportunity for everyone to just do a quick round of introductions. Again, I know it's been, 3 months since we last met. Maybe we don't meet too often. So just to reacquaint ourselves, again, my name, we'll start off with a consultant and city staff, and then we'll go around and then we'll end with some of our new addition, Julie, for the commission. My name is Christian Olano. I'm with Winter Consulting, part of the Winter Consulting team that's helping for the preparation facilitation of this meeting. Pass it off to Daniel.
Good evening, Daniel Sasweta, City Attorney's Office.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Zacharias Mendez with the Office of Economic Development, and I'm the staff liaison.
Good evening, everybody. Name is Frank Ponciano. I am also with the Winter team.
Nancy Klein, Economic Development and Cultural Affairs.
Hello, I'm Jocelyn Banuelos, and I'm also with the Winter Consulting team.
Hello, I'm Nan Nguyen, and I'm with the Winter Consulting team as well.
Thank you. I think we'll go over here.
Ricardo Benavides with Google and a non-voting representative of the commission.
Good evening. Buenas tardes. Sarah Sarape from the Office of the City Manager.
Good evening, Monique Melchor with the Office of Economic Development.
Hi, everybody. Josh Ishimatsu with the City of San Jose Housing Department. Sorry. Good evening. My name is Olivia Ortiz.
Nombre es Alma Bailón.
I'll just say it out loud. My name is Sofía Jaques.
Mi nombre es Juana Villalpando, una líder en el Centro Comunitario Sagrado Corazón.
Good evening, I'm Julie Benowitz Pierce.
Good evening. My name is Lisana Dominguez.
Good evening. My name is Efren Esernero.
Hi, everyone. Jeffrey Buchanan.
Hello, Regina Celestin Williams.
Thank you, everyone. And for our new commissioners, actually, maybe we'll extend this to Efren since he wasn't here at the first meeting as well. But Julie, if you'd like, just briefly tell us a little bit about your background and what's your main area of interest in this commission.
Sure. So I've been a resident of the city of San Jose for about 27 years, and I have worked in social impact and philanthropy for probably my entire career. I initially started out working in professional sports, doing charity events and with the San Jose Sharks and the Sharks Foundation. And then I spent about 16 and a half years with eBay and PayPal, and we were really focused on economic opportunity and doing things locally as well as around the US and globally. And I'm currently with Ross Stores Corporation doing similar work. We're focused on education achievement and building life skills. And in addition to sort of my work and career experience, I'm passionate about economic opportunity and equity, and especially in housing and career development. So I think the focus areas of this commission are of high interest for me personally and professionally.
Thanks so much, Julie, and welcome to the commission. And Efren, feel free to answer as well.
Good evening. My name is Efren, and me and my family live here in East San Jose for almost more than 20 years. And my focus on this commission is like the way we did in East San Jose. We volunteers a lot, so in our community. So my interest in this commission is like on how this impacts to the movements of the people, because once we focus on this commissions, there's displacements again being offered in this area. So we try to understand how it works and how it's gonna impact all those community members who are being impacted by displacements. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Efren. So with that, I think just welcome again to our new commissioners. I think just as a reminder, there's the button to press and then just click it once. And then if you could, please speak closer to the mic so those in the online can hear us as well. So with that, we'll share a little bit about the staff agenda for today. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So last meeting, we wanted to be firm about and reiterate the purpose of the commission, right? Why are you all here? And I think when you ask yourself why, I think you all care deeply about your community, but to really focus in on the namesake for this commission, the purpose of the fund is really to uplift under-resourced communities in San Jose through the two program areas that are the commission's namesake: community stabilization. And what does that mean? These are examples: preventing the involuntary displacement of residents, communities, and small businesses through affordable housing preservation, rental assistance, and similar programs. And then two, opportunity pathways. For example, increasing economic security and educational attainment through training programs, support services, entrepreneurial assistance, and similar programs. Next slide, please. pass it off to my colleague Jocelyn to share a little bit about where we're at in the timeline.
So we just wanted to provide a quick overview of the commission work plan. And as a reminder, there are several steps that need to happen before grants can be distributed from the fund. The focus of 2023 is to onboard the commissioners, develop bylaws for the commission, and to launch the process of selecting a third-party fund manager. Next will be the preparation of the first 5-year strategic plan in 2024, following council approval of the strategic plan and receipt of the initial contribution to the fund. And the fund manager will coordinate with the commission to administer the first grant process.
Thanks so much, Jocelyn.
Let me just make a quick statement there. We'll also be monitoring when funds might be available, and be thinking creatively of perhaps other grant funds that we can go after. So that will be one of the topics that as we move forward, we'll turn our attention to. But just to be clear, I didn't want to leave the impression that we know for sure exactly when we'd be able to lend dollars. That'll take a little bit for us to figure out.
Thanks, Nancy. So next slide, please. So for commissioner involvement, and so what will you as commissioners be doing? I think we reviewed this at the first commission meeting, but in addition to attending, preparing, and actively participating in these committee meetings, there are different levels of involvement that start from informing, consulting, to collaborating, and really ultimately empowerment. Of course, you'll review the information that we provide you, which can be a lot sometimes, consult on selection of the third-party fund manager, review and provide feedback on annual performance reports. For collaboration, really participating in the development of the strategic plan, guiding and supporting public outreach and engagement when that happens. And we'll lean on your networks and connections at that point to guide scoping for competitive grant solicitations and participate in fundraising activities. And then really, the heart of it is empowerment, receiving recommendations from the fund manager, and ultimately approving the grants that get distributed to the community. So with that, for the staff presentation, we'll first start off. If you recall, the last question we asked you at the end of the first meeting was about your ideas for group agreements. Since you all will be here for the foreseeable coming years, I think it's good to establish group agreements. We'll revisit those. Then we'll have a presentation from the city attorney's office about the Brown Act. And then we'll end with some review of the commission bylaws, go over some reminders, and look ahead at the third meeting agenda. So right now I'll pass it off to my colleague Nan to talk about and review some of the group agreements.
Hello. So as a reminder, these are the group agreements that you had all mentioned and added as part of the final closing question at the first meeting, and they are as follows. Respect all opinions and perspectives, even those different from your own. No personal attacks will be tolerated. Honor cultural competency in everyone's different lived experiences. Practice patience to ensure all commissioners, including non-English speakers, fully understand the content, action items, and decision points. Are there any other agreements, additions you would like to add? Okay.
Great, thank you. And in recognizing that Kiyomi mentioned in chat that she's also a commissioner joining online due to a sickness. Thanks, Kiyomi. All right, and we'll mention more about group agreements in the bylaws section as well. So with that, I will pass it off to Daniel to share us a training about the Brown Act and other acts.
Christian. All right, you guys ready? This is going to be the fun part of the evening. Training. This is going to be a lot of fun. So let's wait for the maestro to queue up my presentation here. I made a special presentation for you all just to try to make something that's generally not very exciting somewhat interesting to follow along with. Sure. Yeah.
Will we get the presentation? Or is it in here?
It's not provided yet, but I'll provide a copy. In
Okay,
time.
thank you.
Yeah.
How do we raise our hand? Did I miss that in the instructions?
I don't believe we did.
Oh,
Do we
yes.
have a screen?
So-
No screen available to raise hands at this point. So it's just manual.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
or you can flip your name 10 times. Sorry, I forgot to
Oh,
mention that. Flip your name
like
10 times.
this?
We can call you, call
Okay.
on you. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I believe we sent out an email with a slide deck beforehand, right? Or I think that slides are posted. Is that correct, Sam?
Okay.
And there should be a packet in front of you where the slides are available as well. So if you look toward in the back of the packet, it should be separated by little blue sheets of paper. The very last section, or not the very last session, the very last session will have all the handouts, but the section before that should have the next presentation we're about to go through.
Okay, so my name is Daniel Sasweta again. I'm a senior deputy city attorney with the city attorney's office. I've been with the city of San Jose for just over a year. I am from San Jose, grew up here and still live here, and very proud to be from San Jose, and I love my city. So I'm happy to welcome you all here, happy to be a part of this, and excited that we get this chance to start this commission together. All right, so this is my attempt at having some fancy fireworks for you all to say welcome and congratulations. I think this is a big deal. I really love public service, and I'm glad you all are participating in public service. And I'm going to try to go as slow as I can for our interpreter. But this presentation will be about 30 minutes. All right, so here is our training roadmap. We are going to talk about the Brown Act. Next, the Public Records Act. Then city policies, and then a brief mention of our bylaws or what bylaws are. And then the rules of order, which are kind of how meetings are run, procedure. And then finally, we'll get into conflicts of interest. City. So first we'll be talking about the Brown Act. So we start off in 1952. There was a 10-part series in the San Francisco Chronicle called Your Secret Government. And it was all about the backroom deals that were happening for local governments. And most local decisions at that time were done in back rooms, right, without the public being present. And so the California legislature got together and they passed what's called the Ralph M. Brown Act in 1953, which was signed into law by Governor Earl Warren. So this, one of the bits from the law says the public commissions, boards and councils and other public agency in this state exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. You're going to see this a lot tonight. This is all about the people's business, and all these laws and regulations are aimed at protecting openness and transparency for the people's business. So it's the intent of the law that their actions be taken openly and that their deliberations be conducted openly. So why is it important to have the Brown Act? So this is also from the law. The people of the state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. So the people, in delegating this authority, do not give the public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. I wanted to stress that you are the front line of civic engagement, serving an important role in city government and democracy to help public participation in the decisions of their government and help the government be transparent and accountable to the people it serves. So who does this affect? Legislative bodies. Well, legislative bodies are defined in the statute as any governing body of a local agency or a commission. So you are a commission, therefore you're a legislative body that is under the Brown Act. But there are exceptions to the Brown Act. If we form an ad hoc temporary subcommittee with a defined purpose and a definitive end made up of less than a majority of members, that's not subject to the Brown Act. So what is it? What is the Brown Act? Basically, that meetings must be open, to the public and properly noticed. And a meeting is defined as any congregation of a majority of members of a legislative body at the same time and location to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. Now, subject matter jurisdiction is basically within your purview. Whatever it is that you're granted authority to do in the city, that's your subject matter jurisdiction, right? Here we're talking about funds, talking about community stabilization, anti-displacement measures, anything that's within that purview. That's when we're talking about when we say when you're in the same place, same time to hear, discuss, and deliberate or take action on anything that within your purview. So I had a little fun with this because I like superheroes and they were easy to cut and crop into my presentation. So I chose some superheroes. Maybe you know who they are. But this will give you an example of what I'm talking about here. When we're talking about members of the city council, this is super city council. When they're all here, a quorum means a majority. So tonight we have a quorum because there's a majority of you here. Now, if we take some of them away, there's no quorum, right? There's less than a majority. That's the fancy word of quorum. So whenever you hear quorum, talking about majority. But if we add one more person, Miles comes back, we got a quorum. Now we're going to talk about serial meetings. Now, serial meetings are prohibited under the Brown Act, and there's a few examples of what a serial meeting could be. So let's say America Chavez discusses something with the Hulk, right? They're talking about an item that's within their subject matter jurisdiction. They chat. That's not a serial meeting. That's fine. Two of them having a conversation, no problem. However, when you add one more person to that, which then becomes a majority, even if it's just one other person talking to that person about the same item or same subject, that becomes a serial meeting. That's what's prohibited under the Brown Act. Now, another way to have a serial meeting is to use an intermediary. So let's say America talks to R2. R2 also talks to the Hulk about the same thing. And so does Miles. Well, that's a majority having a conversation about the same thing using an intermediary. And that is considered a serial meeting and is prohibited. Then we have Miles talking to each member individually, also considered a serial meeting that's known as a hub and spoke. That's also prohibited. Now, when all of these members get together outside of a publicly noticed meeting, we don't want to do that. That's not what we want to do. However, if they get together, let's say at a publicly noticed or open to the public gathering, community meeting, that's fine. They just can't discuss anything that's in their subject matter jurisdiction, right? No commission business with the majority, but you can go to any sort of community meeting together, and that's fine. Just don't talk about commission business. So a snapshot, the basic rules for public access: don't discuss commission business with a majority outside of a notice meeting. No serial meetings that are direct or indirect. And use caution with reply all. So if there's an email that goes out where everybody's on the email, just don't hit reply all, right? Unless it's about scheduling a meeting, scheduling is fine. Scheduling is outside of the Brown Act. If we're all trying to get on the same page to figure out when we can meet, that's fine. But generally, kind of stay away from reply all. And social media is also something to be wary of. If you have a lot of the same members who are on Facebook or Instagram or some other social media and discussing something that's within your subject matter jurisdiction, you just want to be careful, right? The idea here is that you don't want a majority to know how each other are going to act, how they're going to vote, all of that. That's what we're trying to prevent, is that the public needs to be there, right? The public, we want deliberations to happen in public at a noticed meeting so that the public can comment on whatever those discussions are, or those opinions are. So that's kind of the point. So during meetings, we're not going to discuss anything that's not on our agenda, right? So I'll get to that now. So the agenda, here's what a common agenda looks like for the city council. Gives you the date, tells you where it's going to be, a little Zoom link, all the different members. Historic Landmarks Commission has one. Planning Commission has one. This is just and this commission has one. So inside of the agenda that's posted online, it gives some instructions of how to join a meeting, what are some of the accommodations that are provided, how to provide public comment. That's what the agenda is there for. At the beginning of the agenda, it lists all these things, maybe the procedures that are going to happen. But then we have the order of business, right? And this looks a little different for this commission, but it's basically the same, right? We have a welcome. We have public comment from members of the public who want to speak before the meeting. Then any items that may be deferred or removed from the calendar. And then this is a new page at the top, the consent calendar. I'm not sure we're going to have consent calendars, but consent calendars are items that are somewhat routine, something that doesn't necessarily warrant a lot of discussion, something that can be taken in a group and voted on in one block. And then we have public hearings or kind of other items, main items of business. So for example, what I want to stress here is if we take one of these items, you see that the item has a link, and this will be the same for your agendas. You'll have a link that'll send you to a memo or staff report for the most part. But what's key here is that the item that you're reading that's on the agenda that you're here to take action on, the discussion is limited to that item. For example, here we're talking about a development agreement with Cisco Systems. Now, this is from a planning commission meeting. They can only discuss the development agreement. They're not talking about Cisco. They're not talking about things that Cisco has done in the past. We're just talking about that, and we're only taking action on that. So I just want to stress that we're limited to what's on the agenda, again, because we want to be able to have the public there to comment on the discussions that are going to happen at the meeting. So if there's something on the agenda and then we veer off into something that's not on the agenda, there might be a member of the public out there who wish they could have been there. And had they known that we were going to discuss that tonight, they would have come. So that's kind of the point. So now here's just a little video of where you find the agenda on our website. Go to your government, find agendas. So yeah, that's a bunch of commissions, bunch of different boards that you can find agendas. Very easy to use. So next we go on to teleconference rules. Basically, you can attend 2 meetings in a year via teleconference. So attending meetings via teleconference is limited to 2 times, given the amount of times that we meet. And it's only reserved for cases of emergency or some other just cause, like illness or taking care of a child or a loved one. You'll need to give a general description of the circumstance to the commission to justify your absence. And then your remote participation requires a simple majority vote at the beginning of the meeting in favor of your participation. Now, I think we have somebody who's on teleconference tonight because they're ill. We're not taking any action tonight, but after this presentation, we can have a vote. Just a nice, see how you guys vote, see if you learned anything tonight. We'll do a vote to make sure that we're in favor of that participation, because I think later on we talk about bylaws, we may need to vote on something. All right, Brown Act violations. So anyone can sue the city to challenge an action taken by a body in violation of the Brown Act. So upon successful challenge, the action can be invalidated. Basically, that's kind of what happens, right? If somebody alleges that we broke the Brown Act, they can say, hey, that was taken illegitimately or in violation of the Brown Act, and they can invalidate it. Potential criminal penalties exist for those members who knowingly participate in a meeting that violates the Brown Act with the intent to deprive the public of information. All right, let's move right along to the Public Records Act. So back again. Public Records Act was enacted in 1968. safeguard the accountability of government to the public, promote maximum disclosure of the conduct of governmental operations, explicitly acknowledge the principles that secrecy is antithetical to a democratic system of government to the people, by the people, and for the people. So Public Records Act defines public records as any writing containing information related to the conduct of the public's business, prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency, regardless of physical form or characteristics. So what does all that mean? All you need to be worried about as far as the Public Records Act is concerned, those are the records that you're maintaining, those are the records that you're creating. So all of your emails using your city issued email address is a public record. So just be aware of that. I created a hypothetical here with just to give you a sample of what I'm kind of talking about here with public records and how sensitive they can be. So if you read along here, I wanted to let you know that I've reviewed the upcoming agenda, and the new project we are reviewing at our next meeting is a big waste of time. I've been talking to the neighbors and we all agree the developer is an idiot. I hope the city reconsiders supporting this joke of a project. Thanks, Commissioner Facepalm. All right, so obviously this is not real. This is giving you an idea of whatever you write in an email will be disclosed as a public record, unless you're asking a legal question to an attorney that's covered by a specific attorney-client privilege. If you ask me some questions about the Brown Act, some legalities about your actions or something, that's privileged and that's not going to be disclosed. However, when you're writing something embarrassing or something that's basically not privileged, it will be released. And you just want to avoid being on the front page of some newspaper, right? Under the quotations, big waste of time. So this is just kind of, it's one of the things that they tell you when you first join an office, right? Or when you first learn about the Brown Act. Just be comfortable with whatever you're writing in an email for it to be on the front page, right? All right, moving right along to policies and bylaws. Again, here's a video of how to find our bylaws, our policies. You go to boards and commissions, and under boards and commissions, scroll down on the left, and you will find the council policy manual. There, under administration and government, are a list of a bunch of city policies. And I'm going to go over a few of these city policies really briefly. So 0-4, this is the basic policy governing boards and commissions. It's about appointments, legislative process, political activities, the referral system. It's 33 pages. Take a look. There won't be a test on it, but it's good stuff to know. Now, this is actually important to know. I would hope that you all review this. It's only 3 pages, 0-15. This is the code of ethics for officials. You are all city officials now, so you should take a look. And 0-36. This is about the code of conduct. Also very important, only 4 pages long. Please review this. If you can't find it online, let us know. We'll send you a copy, but it's good stuff to know. And I wanted to bring up a couple key provisions from 0-36 that are very important. So when you're speaking in public or writing publicly, it's very important that you make clear that you're speaking in your personal capacity, right? Unless you are authorized to speak on behalf of the commission, if you're speaking on an item or any subject that's within the purview of the commission, make sure that you're telling whoever you're speaking to that you're speaking in your personal capacity and not on behalf of the commission. So, and I can't stress this enough, do not use your commission title unless you are speaking on the commission's behalf, right? I know there's a huge temptation to write at the end of an email to the entire city council, hey, I'm a commissioner. As long as you make clear that you're writing on your personal behalf, that's fine. Just don't put your title in there. So that's city policy 0-36. And commissions may not independently support or oppose state or federal legislation, but you can make recommendations to the city council through the Rules Committee. The rules of order, this is basically how meetings are run. So Robert's Rules of Order, which is what we used to run meetings through. Robert's Rules of Order is basically written by a gentleman by the name of Henry Martin Robert, who was a U.S. Army officer living in San Francisco in the late 1800s. That's a picture of him there in a very old Robert's Rules book. But public meetings in that time didn't have rules of procedure. So they were just kind of chaotic. So he thought, hey, I want some sort of standard parliamentary procedure to make meetings run efficiently. So he modeled some rules after the House of Representatives rules and came up with this, but it's very antiquated. So a few years later, we have the Honorable David Rosenberg, who's a judge in Yolo County. Before becoming a judge, David Rosenberg was a lawyer in Davis, city council member, mayor, member of the Board of Supervisors. But he basically found these rules to be very archaic and wanted to simplify it to make them clear, less complex, and more relevant to the 21st century. They first appeared in Western Magazine in 2003. That's a picture of David. So this is just a brief Rosenberg's rules at a glance. I found this online. You can find these online. I think Rosenberg's rules will be handed to you or emailed to you if they haven't been already. But this is basically how you run a meeting, right? Making a motion, seconding that motion, right? So making a motion is how you present an action to the commission. If you want to have a vote on something and you want to pass, let's say there's we want to adopt a resolution that's affecting the bylaws. You want to say, I move to adopt the bylaws, or I move to adopt staff's recommended action. Basically, moving something is the motion, right? And the only way that motion is discussed or acted upon is if there's a second. So somebody else has to second that motion in order for there to be discussion and eventually a vote. So just note that within Robert's Rules of Order, it'll kind of give you a brief outline of how you run a meeting, right? Making motions, how you object, how you call the question, how do you call a vote? All of that is in there. Very important information. I know that if some of you haven't served on a commission, it can be a little daunting. These are just kind of some of the formalities to make the meeting run smoothly. So this is just an example of the Planning Commission's bylaws. We haven't adopted our bylaws for this commission yet, and that's part of the what we're going to be focused on tonight. But I just wanted to show you what some bylaws look like, right? Bylaws talk about the officers in the commission. They talk about kind of what are the powers and duties of that person. They talk about motions, the debate, voting, ayes and noes. How do you petition and communicate? All of that is within the bylaws, and it's basically up to us to decide what we want in there. Now we're going to get to conflicts of interest. So this is the last portion. All of you filled out Form 700, which might have been a little invasive, maybe, I don't know. It's kind of odd to write down everything that you own, and but it's for good reason, right? I mean, I think there's a theme tonight. All of these laws and regulations are all about protecting the public, right? Protecting the public's right to their government. And so what the Political Reform Act does is that prohibits public officials from gaining financially from their public service. And if done effectively, that's a very powerful tool, right? We don't want people to sit in positions of power and make money off of that. So you're prohibited from taking action, and this is important, that will foreseeably impact your personal finances, sources of income, real property, or business entities. So those are the 4 steps down below. Is it reasonably foreseeable that there'll be an impact on your personal finances? Will the action be material, or will it affect the public generally? If so, all those are answered yes, then it's prohibited for you to participate. So we'll just kind of walk through all of these different impacts. Personal finances. So does the action impact your personal finances, including expenses, income, assets, or liabilities, as well as those of your immediate family? So what we're talking about is when you're taking an action as a commission, how is that action going to affect your personal finances, right? How is that going to impact your sources of income? That's what we're looking at here. We just need to be mindful, right? So does the action involve an individual or entity from whom you or your spouse or domestic partner have received an income or promised income aggregating $500 or more in the previous 12 months? Real property. So real property that you own, not that you lease, but that you own. If you have an interest of $2,000 or more, including leaseholds in that real property, however, month-to-month leases are not considered real property interests. Location of real property from a project will determine whether the impact is material or not. So, for example, if that's the house you own in the middle there, within 500 feet, let's say there's a decision being made for a particular location, right? We're giving money to a great charitable organization, and that organization happens to be close by to your house, or it involves some sort of development at the organization or development of that property. Whatever it's going to do will have an impact on your house or your property if it's close enough. So if it's within 500 feet of your house or your property, it's considered a material effect. If it's between 500 and 1,000 feet, there's a rebuttable presumption, basically a weighing of the considerations in stake. So then if it's beyond 1,000 feet, you're clear, don't have to worry about it. Likely not going to come up very often. And if it does, if you have a question about it, just let me know. Business entities, you have investment of $2,000 or more in a business entity, and you are a director, officer, partner, trustee, employee, or manager. That is also presents a conflict of interest. Gifts. So just say no to gifts. City of San Jose prohibits gifts over $50 from a prohibited source or a restricted source. So restricted source is somebody who has interest before the commission, before the city. If somebody's taking you to lunch or something, if they're taking you to lunch and it's clear that they're doing so because you're a commissioner and they want to, get some favor from you, that's a no-no. Just decline. And the Political Reform Act has a prohibition on gifts totaling $590 in 1 year. So something to keep in mind. So when in doubt, sit it out. If you have a conflict, you're not sure, just recuse yourself. So if you think you have a conflict of interest, contact me, contact the city attorney's office. Happy to talk it through. If an upcoming decision will present a reasonably foreseeable material financial impact, then you should complete a conflicts of interest declaration. Give it to me and the city clerk. Or you can just send it to me or staff, and within 24 hours of the meeting, and you recuse yourself. Recusal is basically you sit up, you go in the next room, you don't hear the item, you don't hear the discussion, and then when it's over, we call you back in. Basically, we're just looking to avoid the appearance of bias, even the optics of conflicts of interest. So Political Reform Act violations, administrative proceedings before the Fair Political Practices Commission, FPPC, a criminal prosecution by a local district attorney or state attorney general, civil action by the public, certain government agencies, FPPC Enforcement Division. Hopefully it'll never come to that. All right, and that does it. So happy to take questions now if there's anything burning, or we can hold it till the end. But thank you. You survived, right? So it wasn't terrible, right? Thumbs up, thumbs down. You guys are still awake, so I guess that's good news.
I don't know if everybody's awake. Just kidding, Daniel. I just wanted to jump in and thank Daniel for taking the time to try to make this as interesting as possible. It's some pretty dry information, we know. And I've heard a number of other attorneys do it, but nobody better with any more humor. So thank you very much. And fireworks, definitely no fireworks. So I just wanted to also, before I turn it back to Christian, just jump in and say, I know this has got to be kind of weird, especially for the people who haven't been on commissions before. And just to reiterate, You are more than welcome. That's why we're here to ask some questions now. And you're also more than welcome to talk to one of us, whether best be Daniel or ask one of us staff, and we can help you and or follow up with more questions for Daniel if needed.
Great. So if any commissioners have questions, please just flip your name 10 up and then we'll call you. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, not a question, but just a comment. Yeah, Daniel, thank you for that presentation. I mean, I think that was the most accurate and the best presentation I've seen yet by someone from the city attorney's office about what for the Public Records Act, for the Brown Act, what actually commissioners should be concerned about. So I just want to thank you and encourage the city attorney's office to use that presentation in the future, because oftentimes I think there's a more conservative approach laid out of what could or could not be discussed outside of the commission. And so I think, the superhero presentation of allowing a minority to speak about issues outside, I think was a great way to help people learn and to be, really explain what's actually in the Brown Act. So I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, I was just curious for if we're involved with a nonprofit organization on a board, an advisory committee, as a donor, or if those are conflicts of interest when we would recuse ourselves from voting.
So if there were going to be an item that involved one of those giving money to one of those organizations that you're sitting on board, then yes, you would recuse yourself. Because it's maybe not, maybe you're volunteer, but just the appearance, the optics of that might be some sort of bias in favor of this organization. But when in time it comes, happy to talk it through, because it can be complicated, right? Sometimes how much of that item involves your board or how much of it does involve that organization, it really depends. So it's really on a case by case basis. But certainly if there's you're getting money from an organization, a nonprofit organization, you're getting paid by the organization, and this fund commission is going to delegate some funds to go to that organization, yes, you would recuse yourself.
To follow up on Julie's question, if now that we've had the presentation, we need to like revise our Form 700, can we do that? Because now that we have a better understanding of what we should be thinking about when we complete it.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about that offline, but I'm sure you can amend it. You have to fill it out every year.
Okay.
So, because your finances change every year. Sometimes you sell some things or gain some things, so it changes every year. But if you feel like you left something out, then yeah, we can revise it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Efren.
My question is like, if you are scheduled for 2 years as a commission for 2 years, and then once you got out, you were converted into a nonprofit program, which goes to directly impact the commission itself. Is there a limitation after 2 years, or do you have a duration of you have to wait for how many years before you can go to that non-commission?
So your question is whether or not, how many years do you have to wait until you've left an organization that it no longer becomes a conflict? Is that generally?
Yes, and also you are planning to transfer in the non-profit organizations, which also.
Yeah, I mean, so conflicts of interest are about your finances, right? Generally, there is the appearance of bias that is a separate issue. If you have a conflict, that means if you're getting money from as a source of income, let's say they're paying you or there's a dividend or some sort of stock that you get money from, that is the financial component of the conflict of interest. So if you've left somewhere, right, and you're no longer there, and this commission votes to, let's say it's been 2 years and you're no longer sitting on the board of this nonprofit that the commission is about to vote to give money to, I think that's fine, right? I mean, you're not getting any money from it. There's no financial conflict. However, is there an appearance of bias? Are people going to say, "Oh yeah, Efren, he's definitely going to vote in favor of them, and that's not fair because he has a special inclination to support them"? I mean, people can make those allegations to prove, very hard to prove, right? I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of close calls like that on this commission, I would imagine. But I think that as long as you make it clear that there's no conflict, it's about how you feel, right? I can only give you recommendations. You don't have to recuse yourself. You can stay up there if you want. But I'm just going to give you the best advice that I can. But I would imagine in that scenario of having left for 2 years, I think you're fine. Yeah.
Great. Final call for questions. Going once, going twice.
You will never be able to ask another question ever again. So this is it.
No, just to reiterate, thank you again, Daniel, so much for that presentation. And just to reiterate what Nancy did say, yes, if you have questions, take some time to digest it tonight. I know it was a lot, or over the next week, right? We want, as staff, want to be available for you to answer. It is quite dense, but I think Daniel did a good job of trying to make it really accessible in this first try. And again, we're here to answer any questions in the next couple of weeks, should you have them. So with that, if there's no questions, final call? Okay. So the last part, the last pieces for our agenda, to continue on the sort of dry streak is looking at the commission bylaws, right? So this is something that Daniel alluded to and spoke about. You all received a draft, and I'll reiterate, it's a draft commission bylaws for this commission specifically. And I'll go over some highlights of those bylaws with you. I think Daniel did a great job reviewing some of them. So I'm going to skip over some, or just skim over some of them, since Daniel already reviewed some of them. But there are 2 points in particular that we wanted to discuss with you all today, and then we'll leave it open at the end for discussion. It's only like 9 slides, so bear with me. So next slide, please. Don't get intimidated, but these are just as Daniel alluded to, there are many rules that govern commissions, such as the bylaws, such as the Brown Act, such as Rosenberg's Rules of Orders. This is just one tool to govern a commission. So next slide, please. And really to emphasize the purpose. What is the purpose of bylaws? The bylaws is specific to this commission. It establishes a set of rules that govern the management and procedures of the commission's meetings. They help to map out the duties and obligations of commissioners and city staff, provide guidance on voting and decision-making processes. And then for the city of San Jose specifically, most commissions operate under standard set of bylaws established by the city clerk's office, unless otherwise designated. But for this specific commission, it has been designated as one of those commissions where you can adopt amended bylaws. So you have the ability to change them should you as a commission decide to. So next slide, please. So there are several articles. I think it's a 6 to 9 page document, but for our discussion today, we'll talk on the first 3. General provisions, and then the officers, chair, vice chair, chair pro temp. And I'll explain that in the following slides. So next slide, please. So for general provisions, in discussions with city staff and consultants, we wanted to offer these 2 additions to the general provisions. So You all were the first one, good standing. Commissioners must be in good standing and embody good character during and outside the commission meeting setting. Just to reiterate, you all were selected due to your upstanding commitment, leadership, and stature with your respective community and the San Jose community as a whole. So as a commissioner, we wanted to just reiterate your position as a respected member of the community and reinforce that actions outside these meeting settings, they don't negatively impact the integrity and credibility as of the commission as a whole. You'll be making critical decisions that may have a big impact on the community with many eyes on the conversations and then decisions that are made. Then for the second one, group agreements that we referred to earlier, that commissioners will adhere to the group agreements established by the commission and that they'll be revisited on a biannual basis and updated or amended as necessary. And this is really about adaptability, right? So it's acknowledged that the group agreements exist and that you reviewed earlier and that we'll revisit on a biannual basis, especially if as the commission work progresses and the nature of the commission progresses as well. Are there any other general provisions that should be considered? And we'll have we'll have a space at the end to talk about it, but I think leave this out here as a placeholder for now. And if you have any other additions, we'll discuss it at the end. So then next slide, please. For Rosenberg's rules of order, Daniel already talked about this. So really it's a simplified rules of parliamentary procedure for the meetings. Daniel talked about how the flow is that the chair establishes the agenda, invites presentations, invites public comment, and that there are motions and seconded motions, and that there's space for public comment before those votes are made. So next slide, please. So for the second and third articles, this is really about the chair, right? And the vice chair and chair pro temp. So what is the responsibility of the chair? They're responsible for presiding over the meeting, conducting the meeting in alignment with Rosenberg's rules of order, the city policy and municipal code, and serve as a signatory for documents and recommendations from the commission. The vice chair presides over meetings in the absence of the chair and all duties in the absence of the chair, and the chair pro temp is available to fill either the chair or vice chair position in the event of a vacancy. Slide, please. So it's indicated in, so currently, one point of discussion that we did want to bring to the commission, currently for the first and second meetings, there's been no formal chair, but as part of this bylaws discussion, we as a consultant and city staff team want to provide you with two different options for how these meetings would function going forward. For option one, a chair, vice chair, and chair pro temp would be voted on at the next commission meeting, with the understanding that meetings are facilitated and ran by the chair under Rosenberg's rules of order, that city and consultant staff would develop the agenda in preparation of the agenda items for each meeting with the support of the chair. And currently a tentative work plan with high-level agendas has been drafted for the next 3 meetings, as we shared earlier in the presentation, and staff would work with the chair to review these agendas until a fund manager is selected late next year. For option 2, this would be hybrid, that city and consultant staff would continue to facilitate these meetings for meetings 3, 4, and 5, as we have thus far, until the fund manager is selected, at which point a chair, vice chair, and chair pro temp would be selected. Rosenberg's rules of order could still be utilized until that point to govern the meeting, and votes would be carried through via consensus, majority vote called by any commissioner. And the thinking behind this was due to the procedural and administrative nature of these introductory meetings, which includes the trainings, introduction to the RFP process, and selection of the fund manager. So once the fund manager is selected at meeting 5 onwards, it's at that point the commission would have substantive discussion on commission work, and as the grantee selection with a strategic plan process commences. So with that, that was kind of quick, but we'll now take time to discuss any of the questions you might have regarding these bylaws. Please raise your name tag if you have any questions or have any thoughts about the bylaws as they stand. Thank you. And then after this point, I just wanted to reiterate that we will be taking public comment after this discussion. So if you're online or joining us in person, feel free to fill out a comment card or use the raise, I think it's the raise hand feature online. But we'll first go to committee discussion. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yep, thank you. So it was helpful, Christian. I appreciated the explanation of the two options in the bylaws. Or the draft bylaws that we were presented. I didn't see the conversation on the chair or vice chair working with staff to develop agendas that are brought before the commission. Is that just, or did I miss that, or is that just informally how typically it's done? Because I think that would be helpful for us in particular. Given this body was hopefully able to become rather self-directing in terms of setting its agenda. It'd be important for for us to have some way of ensuring that some representation of the board is involved in developing agendas that come back to the board, and having the chair and vice chair play that role, whether it's with staff today or the fund manager tomorrow. I think that makes a bit of sense, but for some reason I didn't see that in the written bylaws. So, but heard it in the presentation. So any clarity on that would be helpful.
The chair, vice chair are in the bylaws, but we just hadn't gotten there yet. So that's why we were explicitly pointing out, sort of as a matter of convenience, because the first several meetings are strictly administrative. But again, as thanks to Christian and Frank and the Winter team, laying that out so you can explicitly make a choice.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Just wanted clarity in case I missed something. Thank you.
Go ahead, Regina.
Yeah, I was needing clarity as well. So the presentation that you just went through is not the bylaws that are drafted in front of us. They were some sort of changes or modifications to those. Is that right?
I think we wanted to give you the two options, right? So the bylaws, I think currently it's as it stands that there's a chair that is selected. We currently aren't there since we're going through the administrative pieces, but I think we wanted to have a discussion with you all on what that looks like going forward.
Christian?
Okay, so it went a little quickly. So it started with general provisions that are not in the draft. There's something that's proposed. Is that right?
The general provisions have been added to the draft that was sent to you for your review and is in front of you today.
Okay.
So those are staff and consultant recommendations that we are suggesting that we add and were added. And then as far as the conversation regarding the chair and officers, it's something we would just wanted to open it up to the commission to have a conversation about.
I'm
Zach,
sorry.
say where
That's not, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the general provisions and it ends at section 105. So this is 106 and 107. So they are not in the draft. They're being added. I'm trying to clarify.
My apologies. They should be. They were in the drafts that were sent to you. So I must have printed out the wrong forms.
Okay.
My
Thank
apologies.
you. That's helpful. Okay. So is that right?
Yeah, and I just was going to ask Zach to make sure commissioners knew where the draft bylaws, whichever version, are in the packet so you could easily access them. Are they in the back, Zach?
That's what I thought I was looking at was the back. But
They are in the packet in the back, but it sounds like I may have printed the wrong ones. So that I'm going to put the provisions that for the general provisions, the 6 and 7, I'll put them back up on the screen for you to review. Those have been added to the draft that we are maintaining as a draft one.
Okay.
And it should have been what was sent to you in your packet email prior to this meeting.
That's good. They're in the slides, so you don't have to put them up. I'm just trying to clarify. So, and then the Rosenberg's Rules of Order, was that some sort of discussion around whether or not we should substitute it? What was there a question around that? I missed the question.
I can answer that. So part of any bylaws, it's just kind of the rules of the road, right? So you have Robert's rules and Rosenberg's rules. And so commissions in the city of San Jose have used Rosenberg's rules now because they're a lot simpler. So we just put that in the bylaws that this commission shall be governed by Rosenberg's rules of order, because it's a lot easier to understand. They're clearer. And so if you have any questions, instead of going through Robert's rules, which is a huge book, I mean, there's other rules of order out there, but Rosenberg's rules we've decided is kind of the easiest to use. And so the bylaws will say, this commission shall be, kind of the meeting shall be held under under Rosenberg's rules of order. So that's kind of what that means.
That's helpful. Where
Yeah.
does it say that?
I don't know.
Can
Should be in there. If it's not in there, we can add it.
Can anyone say
Do you
where that
have
is?
the bylaws that we can maybe put it up? Section
203. Oh, I see it. Okay, that's helpful.
So I want to stress to you all, these are your bylaws. This is up to you. You guys decide what you want to go in there, right? And so that's why this question is, do you want a chair? What does the chair do? Do you need a chair, right? Do you want somebody who's going to be kind of the point person to run the meeting, who's a volunteer up there? Or do you want staff to run the meeting?
Right.
And not have a chair, right? So
Right.
that's really what the decision is here. All the other provisions we can talk about, they're kind of just, the mechanics of how we run these meetings. And so the really important piece tonight to decide is, do you want a chair or not have a chair? Maybe we don't have a chair for the first few meetings because, like Nancy said, it's administrative. And maybe you don't need a chair, but later on, you're going to want somebody maybe up there to help work with staff to decide what goes on the agenda
Yeah.
and to run the meeting.
Yeah. And so the next slide, because it went kind of quickly, where it said Articles 2 and 3, the officers, that was just a summary of what's already in here.
Right. So that's
Okay.
a template.
And
That's
that
just-
talks about chair and vice chair. So
Right.
when you say, do you want a chair or not, are we talking about both positions?
Right. We're talking about getting rid of those altogether. No chair, no vice chair, no temporary chair, all that. We just get rid of it and have a chairless commission. That is the
That was
option.
on the table as well? I didn't hear that. I heard the standard and then a hybrid. I did not hear get rid
Yeah,
of
the
that
the
altogether.
hybrid could be later on you vote that you actually want a chair, right? And that you would change the bylaws to add those back in.
Would that be the change? It wouldn't say explicitly when a fund manager is onboarded, that's when the chair, it would take the
You
all the way
could,
out.
these are your bylaws. You could do that.
Okay. I just want to note that was really quick. So if there can be some other kind of cadence to go through that amount of information, that would be helpful.
Sure.
I'm just trying to follow. Okay.
No, I
Thank you.
appreciate the questions, Regina. Thank you. Yeah, I think that we wanted to lay out the different options, right? And I think please ask clarifying questions. And I think this is your commission. I think we provided the different options. We know that a lot of these introductory meetings are procedural, but we do acknowledge that, we wanted to just provide the options for chair, vice chair, pro temp as well. Sana?
Yeah, thank you. So my question was around vacancies. So I see that you have a chair and vice chair description of what to do if there's a vacancy. However, I know that the appointment process to the commission is different, but is there language that would go and normally sit in the bylaws around how that process happens to an appointment to this commission?
I didn't quite understand the question. Can you mind
So
repeating?
if we have in case in the future, there's a vacancy to the commission,
Mhm.
what's the process for that? And does that live in the bylaws?
Yeah, I mean, you would have a provision in there to deal with vacancies in the bylaws.
Okay.
And it would go to the city clerk, and city clerk posts, we're looking for, there's a board, there's a vacant, I mean, there's always kind of announcements that we're looking for folks to sign up to be on commission. So it would just be the same process.
Okay, yes, because
Yeah.
I didn't see it here, so I was just curious.
But I think to answer the question a little more detailedly, yes, you could make a suggestion to add some provisions that speak specifically to it. This chair also has an alternate that serves as as somebody who can fill in for a vacancy as well. So that person is not here today, but normally they would be available should a seat become vacant.
I'm sorry, can you explain a little bit more? What will be the role of the chair and the vice chair with the staff? What will be the role that we have to do?
The role of the chair. Yeah, so the chair runs the meeting, right? So the chair will, welcome everybody here, say the Pledge of Allegiance, call roll. The chair kind of, when I say runs the meeting, is keeping track of, kind of saying, okay, now we're going to have staff presentation. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to public comment. Staff, are there any hands raised? Running the meeting as to, okay, here's the first item of business. Is there any discussion? Are there any motions on the table? A second, let's have a vote, doing the roll call vote. So the person is basically running the meeting, and the vice chair is kind of filling in for the chair when the chair is not there, right? So if the chair is absent for illness or some other reason, it can't be there, the vice chair will fill in. Now, what we're saying tonight is that perhaps this commission doesn't want a chair. And that was something that was floated. I completely open to it. I have never seen that before, but perhaps we can do that, just not have a chair. But I think the idea was perhaps during these first few meetings, we don't need a chair, but we want a chair eventually. The chair meaning the person who's going to run the meeting, right? And that would be for a year, right? And then commission votes for somebody new to do it the next year, who's going to run the meeting, right? So it's a responsibility to really know the material, be on time, run the meeting efficiently, right? And pay attention to what motions are on the table, pay attention who's voting, what, how, all that. So it's somebody who, and the chair doesn't necessarily, the chair doesn't make motions. Chair can make a motion, but chair usually facilitates the discussion, right, to run the meeting.
So at some point, we're gonna have to have a chair and a vice chair. If
you
we
want.
decide that,
Yeah, if you want. That's
does
the
the
decision.
the chair has like direct contact with the staff, city staff? Does that make the meetings easier? Is it more helpful that we have a chair and a vice chair, or?
I think so. I mean, for other commissions, right? So the chair asks to place things on the agenda, right? So commissioners can ask the chair, hey, what about putting this on the agenda for next time? The chair can kind of take stock of what are all the different requests for things that can go on the agenda and decide what should go on the agenda and discuss with staff that I would like to put this on the agenda for next time. Right now, there's not going to be much of that, right? Because we've already set out the first few meetings, which are administrative, that kind of get this commission up and running. There's not many decisions as of yet. I mean, when we do the fund manager, that's the first major decision that you're going to be making. But again, I think it's really up to you all to decide if you want one person up there to run the meeting, or would you rather have Christian and staff run the meeting? That's kind of the question before you all.
So let's say if we're gonna put an item on the agenda and we have no chair or vice chair, can us, like any of us, put something on the agenda even if we don't have a chair or vice
Of
chair?
course.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You can make recommendations.
Thank
Say,
you.
hey, we would like to put this on the agenda. You can all somebody can make a motion. Somebody can second that motion. You can have a vote and say, we all want to vote to put that on the agenda.
Got it.
You can totally do that.
Thank you.
Julie, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that my inclination would be that we would have a chair and a vice chair. And I'm open to option 2 if that's how folks are feeling, if we wait through these first few administrative meetings. I can go either way, but.
I think next meeting, we're actually voting to approve the bylaws. So it might be something that you guys all want to discuss tonight to kind of come to some agreement as to whether or not, I mean, you don't need to decide until next time, take some time to think about it. But maybe next time we adopt the bylaws that will have the chair, the vice chair, or not.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, no, sorry for taking up space, but it seems like folks hopefully got a chance to ask the first round of questions. Yeah, I think for this commission, given the scope of everything we're trying to accomplish and the spirit of this commission, that it was really going to be run by representatives of the community. I think, in that spirit, it makes a lot of sense for us to consider as a body, adopting a chair and a vice chair. Similarly, while I appreciate that there's been a lot of staff work, and work by the consultants to come up with agendas for the next couple of meetings. These are important decisions that we're making at the foundation of this effort. And so I think it makes sense that we as commissioners have as much say into how these meetings are run. And that, we get into practice, because eventually we are going to be needing to run these meetings and make our own decisions. And so I think, while I appreciate the alternative sets of proposals, as a body, I think it would make a lot of sense for us to adopt actually appointing a chair and a vice chair, and maybe even making it formal in terms of, stating that both of those officers are working with staff to come up with meeting agendas. And perhaps, just because there's so many issues we want to cover and so much of a diversity of experience on this body, maybe even having a standing item at the end of our commission hearings for what future items may want to be added to agendas, just because we're going to cover so many topic areas and types of initiatives and programs. There may be things, whether it's, what the city's doing in relation to X, or, bringing in an issue expert on Y. It may make sense to just have a standing item. Like, for instance, I serve on a school board, and that's something that we have in every agenda, asking for, are there standing items that we want to bring to the next board meeting? And I think it might be worth thinking about including, whether it's in our bylaws, or just how we run our meetings. So yeah, just those are my initial thoughts based on the conversation, and what transpired to get us here to this dais. Thank you.
Yeah, any final questions from commissioners? Right, I think for this agenda item, I
Muy
think
bien, entonces creo que para este punto de la agenda lo vamos a abrir para el comentario público. Y solamente quería asegurarme si algún miembro del público quería hacer un comentario acerca de los proyectos de ley o de algún otro asunto acerca del entrenamiento. Entonces, para ver lo que hemos cubrido. Entonces, como recordatorio para los miembros del público, se les va a dar 2 minutos, y si están en línea también o en persona, y también después de esto van a tener como para comentarios virtuales digitales. Ahora tenemos 2 manos levantadas para los comentarios virtuales, y entonces vamos a tomar el comentario público acerca de los temas y el entrenamiento. La primera persona es Paul Soto, y le voy a dar 2 minutos para que usted hable.
Paul, you should be able to unmute.
Paul ahora va a poder prender su micrófono. Muy bien, entonces voy a pasar a la siguiente y vamos a regresar a Paul. La siguiente es Lillian Conning, y le voy a permitir que pueda prender su micrófono. Ya prendí mi micrófono. Entonces, toda la estabilización, la comisión de estabilización, yo he escuchado todo, pero yo escuché más atentamente en la último cuarto de lo que ustedes estaban diciendo acerca del jefe. Yo no sé cómo con presidente y vicepresidente, no entiendo cómo pueden tener una comisión sin esto. Entonces, cuando dice que lo podrían cambiar en cualquier momento, pero dijo que tenía que estar seguro acerca de esto para la siguiente reunión. Era un poco de un conflicto. Entonces, solamente sé que de todas las comisiones y todas las juntas escolares que tiene un presidente y un vicepresidente, ¿cómo pueden ustedes tener una comisión sin esto? Muchas gracias por su comentario. Y entonces ahora voy a pasar a Paul Soto. Paul, usted va a poder prender ahora su micrófono.
Paul, are you there?
Paul, ¿está ahí?
Seems like Paul is not there, so that concludes the public comment that we have currently.
Entonces parece que ya no está ahí. Esto concluye el comentario público que estamos teniendo actualmente.
All right, if there's any last questions from commissioners.
Muy bien, si hay alguna otra pregunta de los comisionados o algún comentario.
All right, I know that
Muy bien, entonces no estoy segura si hay algún pedimento que se hará en la siguiente reunión, pero siguiente diapositiva. Muy bien, en la siguiente vamos a terminar los estatutos y luego creo que la siguiente reunión va a ser para revisar los estatutos finalizados en la próxima reunión. Y luego esto también va a usarse la elección de los oficiales si fuera necesario para continuar con la comisión y con la reunión 3 de la comisión y mirando hacia el futuro, como mencionamos, adoptar los estatutos, la presentación del proceso de RFP, una presentación al proceso y conversar el borrador. Y también entonces estábamos esperando esto y vamos a estar enviando el enlace para Duro. Y creo que Zach, vamos a estar haciendo esto hacia finales del año, es correcto. Y entonces antes de terminar el año, por favor, responda, vamos, búsquelo en sus correos. Y ahora lo voy a pasar a mi colega Frank para nuestro, para, antes de terminar, creo que vamos a salir las preguntas y creo que tenemos otro comentario público o no. Sí, pero queremos sus opiniones antes de poder salir de esta reunión específicamente y nosotros agradeceríamos a las respuestas a una de las tres preguntas. ¿Qué es lo que agradece de la reunión? ¿Hay algo que les recomendaría que mejoráramos? Y la tercera pregunta es, ¿qué es lo que esperarían de lo que está viniendo? Queremos oír de cada comisionado, así que queremos estar aquí y si están pensando todavía, podríamos saltearlo y podríamos regresar a esto. Entonces poder responder una pregunta o las tres preguntas y simplemente decir, entonces creo que ya nos salteamos, entonces nos vamos a pasar al siguiente comisionado a la mañana.
Oh, I was wondering where are the three questions located again?
Me preguntaba dónde están ubicadas esas tres preguntas. Oh, no creo que las tenemos disponibles visiblemente, no están en diapositivas, ¿verdad? No, solamente son preguntas de salida para puntos de mejoría para esta reunión. Oh, pensé que tenía tres preguntas específicas. ¿Qué es lo que sí son? ¿Qué es lo que están buscando de aquí en adelante? ¿Y qué cosas mejorarían o algo que les gustaría mejorar. Entonces estoy esperando conversar con el resto de las personas en el grupo acerca de sus pensamientos y perspectivas acerca de asuntos de vivienda y estabilidad y cómo podríamos tener soluciones con acción basadas en las vivencias vividas y también ver, viendo la comunidad y de aquí en adelante colaborar. Gracias. Entonces, muy bien, ahora pasamos. ¿Quién quiere hablar del comisionado de la izquierda? Um,
Y pues necesito más información y he estado, bueno, es mi propósito, tratar de consultar más porque en sí no tengo tanta información sobre esto, pero pues estoy aprendiendo. Y también quisiera una cosa que tengo, aunque no tengamos el presidente o el presidente, o aunque esté el presidente o vicepresidente, de todos modos el comité es el que va, los comisionados son los que van a tomar la decisión. Tengamos presidente o no presidente, los comisionados toman las decisiones.
Sí, en las próximas juntas. So basically looking forward to this election and the conversation around the chair, the vice chair. Muchas gracias por participar.
Yeah, I just want to echo the earlier comments, Daniel. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I think it was great that we're getting kind of this foundational start to the commission and that you know, sort of went through every piece of it. Want to make sure there's good understanding across the commission. And I think it's great that the commission has also decided on our group agreements.
Thank you. Listen.
Thank you for the presentation and all the information today. I would say I look forward to finalizing the bylaws and the decision that we come up with as a commission. And I would say recommendation would be perhaps going more in depth on the chair or the president and the vice president of the chair or vice chair role, providing pros and cons or, you know, at least examples of current commissions that are using one or the other or either.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for the presentation, and it helps us a lot in terms of like guidance of what to do. Honestly, this is my first time to be sitting down in this chamber. The last time I remember is way back here at the top, and it's an honor to serve here, and I'm looking forward for working those chairman and a vice chair, and also the help with the staff because I remember last time that we did this one without any person moving us along in that time. We have to make sure that the time is up and then we do our job, or we're gonna use our agenda at the very best of our time so that we're gonna, like in your presentation, it's the only waste of time if you're gonna just keep back and forth. So at least there's a guidance for the staff. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, just want to reiterate thanks to Daniel for the commissioner training. I think that was a great presentation. And just really excited about, we're on the verge of starting the process for finding that third party fund administrator. You know, this is really, it's really something that's very different than how the city usually does business. And something that, you know, so many community members were a part of bringing forward. And so that we're on the cusp of, you know, creating this new kind of governance where community members are really going to be at the center of decision making, and, you know, figuring out what's best to where we can put dollars to address displacement and create economic opportunities. It's really exciting. And so just a lot of thanks for all the folks that it took to bring us here. So thank you.
Thank you, Virginia.
Yeah, I want to reiterate a gratitude to Daniel for his presentation. It was very helpful. I think we were required to do that training online, but this was it's nice to be able to ask questions. So thank you. I think one of the questions I have is about, how we can leverage translation services to improve our dialogue with our commissioner colleagues, making sure that that we're able to, do things like understand everything that our colleagues are saying on the commission, who may be not speaking in our native tongues. And so that would be really helpful. And then I don't know how you facilitate that if we form like Brown Acts and things like that, groups that talk, not as a minority, but talk as to discuss things outside of the commission, and as it relates to the Brown Act. But how do we make sure that we're able to communicate with our colleagues? So I don't know if there's more detail you can tell us about, like what translation services will be available to us to make sure that there's nothing hampering like us being able to work with everyone equitably. And then I think, one of the things I look forward to is being able to leverage all of our various experiences, perspectives, basically what we bring to this commission in every step of the work. So, hoping that when we start talking about the RFP process, that there's ways we can bring in the different things that we're hoping to see, the motivations, the hopes that we have for this fund through every step of the process, so that it's not like so technical that we're not actually getting to know more about what ultimately, how we're going to shape this fund. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, commissioners. Coming around, is there anything there? Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate all the information that you guys give us today. I like the presentation. It was a very, very funny learning. Something that I think I'm looking forward is to really set up the RFP and find someone that is gonna, help us with this journey. Feedback that I will give is like, I don't know, how do we make sure that non-English speakers understand what's going on, at the time the meeting is going. I know because of the time, but I think we should go a little bit slower, make sure everyone, is on the same page. And it's, I don't know if it's me, but it's really hard for me to kind of understand. My college is like an echo in here, but it's also, it's hard for me to understand when they're speaking. I have to like really even kind of close my eyes and kind of pay more attention to them. So I don't know what can we do about that. But also I know that the interpretation, it's going on also. I remind myself and all of us here to kind of go speak a little bit slower, because it's really hard, to interpret, when someone is speaking fast. But yeah, I really want to make sure that, we all understand, the discussion is going on. This is what we're making. I think it's very important. And I really appreciate the diversity of this commission. And I think we have to also acknowledge that some of us need more support and more, help to kind of understand what's going on. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Y pues, señora, le quería dar una oportunidad si tenía algo más que decir.
I wanted to give you another opportunity if there's something else that you would like to say. Because, or the person that's sitting to your left. Well, my opinion is that if we appoint a chair and a vice chair, would there be a revoke? If we see that the chair is not working out, can we revoke it?
If things are not working out with the chair, is there any recourse? That's my understanding of the question.
Because I am seeing that a lot of people do worry about the language issue, that we're not understanding.
Do not, they're worried in regards that we may not be understanding each other. So the previous statement was that whether there be a president or a vice president, whether or not there may be, that will there be a course of revocation if that doesn't work out favorably?
We can always vote to remove the chair, right? If members do not have confidence in the chair, they can vote to remove.
So they have interpretation.
Perfecto,
It's being
gracias.
done like. So. We just weren't, I want to apologize. We are the interpreters, but we weren't aware that we were going to have somebody speaking in Spanish. So in the future, we're going to opt to sit a little closer. We were all the way upstairs because usually that's where they like us to be. So I apologize to everybody who's present. There are services that can be given to you in person so that everybody can have facilitation to be able to speak together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
¿Y a usted, señora, tiene alguna otra pregunta?
And you, madam, do you have another question, or is there anything else that you would like to add?
Thank you.
So is there any other question or is there any other, because if that way that we can go ahead and answer you. Okay, if you have anything else that you'd like to present.
I have another question. I don't know if I can. Because there was a question about how do you get rid of the chair or the vice chair? I saw that in the bylaws. When we talk about parts of the bylaws, can you refer to where that is just so we can see how that's written up? Because I was trying to find that, but I saw it in here in terms of how to get rid of the chair, but it might help if you can point us to that.
Well, Zach is looking. I know that the chair and the vice chair are selected for a year. So just to, it's not one and done, one and forever, but on an annual basis. And then
I do have an answer for that. So in Article 2, Section 201, at the end, it states the chair and vice chair shall serve at the pleasure of the commission during the term of the office and may be removed from office by the commission at any time for any reason.
Is there any follow-up question to that?
Maybe it needs to state more explicitly something about a vote. And when you revise the bylaws, maybe more explicitly to speak to what that removal would look like.
we can add the detail. Thank you.
And if I might, I know that Mr. Rate, you have a question. But just before you do, I just wanted to say, I encourage you all to take a look at these bylaws, come up with any edits, questions, comments, bring them to the meeting next time, because we're going to vote on approval of the bylaws. So we can incorporate those at that meeting. So that's, I mean, it's kind of the hard part about public service is that you have to do it all here on the dais, right? But bring your ideas, bring your questions, bring your comments, and then we'll vote next time.
Just one addenda to what the counselor just said. We'll send you an updated draft so that you can the very most recent.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the acoustic comment. It is pretty problematic. And I imagine it's even worse for anyone who's deaf or hard of hearing. If I logged into the Zoom meeting, I could turn on the captions. So I'm wondering if we could do the same up on this screen. Just for future meetings, because it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. We can definitely look into that. We can also look into alternative locations that might not have the same audio requirements. And we might look into that for the next one, maybe somewhere that's a little bit more conducive to a group conversation.
Okay, before we finish with the exit question and go on to public comment, I do want to give an opportunity to Commissioner Sarah to give us some feedback as well. If there's anything that you would like to add, anything you would suggest that we improve next time, or anything you're looking forward to.
I just want to say that that was the most thrilling Brown Act presentation I have ever been through. So kudos to the city attorney's office. No, I really appreciated having the training for the first part to give us some grounding for the future meetings. Thank you.
I actually have a clarification question. I just want to make sure I heard correctly in regards to whether or not you needed the chair and the vice chair. I think you mentioned you didn't have to have chair or vice chair, so I wanted to make sure everyone heard that. Is that what you had mentioned, Jen?
Also having a little bit difficulty hearing.
Oh,
but
sorry.
Yeah,
So the chair and vice chair isn't necessarily mandatory. You can have the committee without a chair.
you
and
know,
vice
this
chair
was
as well.
brought to me as an idea that maybe this commission, as a new commission, maybe there shouldn't be one person at the, kind of, maybe they're all chairs. I'd never heard of that before. I didn't see any city policy that there's no
Okay.
state law, there's no city
Okay.
code section that mandates there be a chair.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they all understood that because I wasn't sure if that is what you had mentioned. So it does sound like you did
Yeah.
say that it's something that they could possibly consider as well.
Yeah, but like I said, I've never seen an example of it. I don't know of any body that doesn't have a chair or a co-chair.
And just to put a fine point on that,
Much.
staff has very much heard that we'll go forward with a chair and vice chair.
Okay, thank you all. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Close us out.
Great. Any members of the public online for items? The agenda?
Yes, we still have two hands up. I'm going to return to Paul Soto first to see if he is here to speak. Paul Soto, I'm going to allow you to talk. Feel free to unmute yourself. Seems like Paul is not here still, so I'm going to move on. And Lillian, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
I'm muted. I appreciate the meeting. Just make sure that on the city calendar, when it states all the meetings that are taking place, that you are now going to be put on there and your time, because I'm not sure how I found you, but I don't believe it was on that city calendar. And the other thing is a smaller room would be better, because when you're looking at it from Zoom, you can hardly see the faces. I can't even see the names with the faces. So maybe you just might want to rethink that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I'm going to return to Paul one more time. Paul, if you're here, feel free to unmute yourself. And it seems like Paul is not here anymore, so that concludes our public comment.
Before we break, I just wanted to reiterate just how excited I am to be a part of this. And just wanted to say, please be patient, right? This is a very long process. I feel like there's a lot of passion in the room. I share that passion in addressing some of the problems that we see in our community, but I want you to just hang on. It's going to take a while for us to get there, but I just wanted to make that clear. It's going to be a while, right? We're in it for the long haul. I'm happy to see you all here, and I look forward to seeing you all again next time.
And just one housekeeping note, there are sandwiches and salad in those 2 green bags. So if somebody wants to grab one on the way out, please feel free.
And I'm sorry, just before we completely close out public comment, I did lower Paul's hand and saw it come back up. So just in to give him his time, if he's here, I will allow him to speak. Paul, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for extending me that courtesy. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I have zero confidence in the process and this council's ability to function in the intention for which it was created. Now, that's dirty money to begin with, and it was too low to begin with. I'm not satisfied with what we have. I wanted a university as well, because this is about community stabilization. And so what I wanted from Google, Mr. Benavides, okay, you need to contact me, dude. I want to talk to you personally, because I wanted a university that was going to be staffed with trained engineers to make a pipeline of viable citizens that can afford to live in this region. Okay, that $200 million was chump change. Google has that in their ashtray. Do you know that at the time that they were formulating this deal, that Google had its most prosperous year in its entire history, $190 billion during COVID in 1 year. In 1 year, $190 billion. And they got the nerve to offer a disgusting 200 million. Man, that's chump change. So I'm not very confident in the integrity of what this money represents, because all that's happening is this money is going to go to a bunch of nonprofits that gathered all of the data and all of the information from the barrios and fed it back to Google. That's what it is. It's nothing but hush money to Somos Mayfair, to Silicon Valley Rising, to Working Partnerships, and all of those other nonprofits that have a stake in this. So the entire process, it stinks. I'm going to be here for that long haul, and believe it, I'm going to be the last man standing. Benavides, you need to get a hold of me, dude.
And that now concludes public comment.
All right. So with that, I just wanted to reiterate what Daniel said. I think this is a long process. You are commissioners. I think we recognize the passion and we recognize your dedication. We recognize that you took time out of your day-to-day to be here, right? And I think we wanted to commend you for all of that. And that this, I just wanted to reiterate again that there is there's a lot of content that was delivered today. Please review, come back to us with questions, and we'll see you respond to the doodle once we send it, because we want to meet before the year ends. And just many thanks to everyone who's here today online visiting, to our interpreters and staff who stayed, past 5 to be here, and everyone who put this meeting together again today. We really value your input. I think we're gonna try to get another room next time so we can really foster a more intimate dialogue and setting, and I think we'll see you then. So with that, I think we're gonna adjourn at 8:25. All right, thank you, everyone.